Good morning. Sunday, 27 July 2025. I'm Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. 10:30 in the morning, 80 degrees already. A lot of rain yesterday and bright sun, totally clear skies, not a single stripe in the sky. Oh, there's a puffy cloud over there, but that looks like a real one. It's going to be a steamy one today. And so right now, Jim and I are in the process of milking. We started a little late today, just because. But we're in the middle of it. I've jarred up a couple of gallons of milk, and I feel inspired. I feel inspired because of the rain we got yesterday and because of the systems that we've put in place, and now things are growing. And I feel like I'm in the middle of something that's happening, right? And I made that video yesterday, and I think it meant more to me than it did to a lot of people because I was in it, and it was profound. And you may think, boy, this guy, what's with him? And let me explain a little bit. I went on from there to a gathering of folks, and I kept my mouth shut, and I just did some observation. I did some observation. I know what I had come from when I got there. Yesterday we produced 15, 16, 18 gallons of milk. Got it all in jars, got it cooled, got it in the cooler. And as we were gone, people came through here and got their milk. And that milk nourished their children, nourished their families. It was a production. We produced something. And from that mindset of production, there was an extreme amount of clarity. So a lot of people are getting into homesteading and small farming. And that's what I do. I am not a content creator. I don't make money off of YouTube or Facebook or anything. And this is just like the US Post Office as far as I'm concerned. You got something to say, a lot of people are interested in it, and this is how you do it. It's sort of like show and tell. A lot of times I talk about show and tell because I didn't do very well in school, but I really like Fridays because it was show and tell day. They didn't do that. I think we quit doing that when we got into like 6th grade, and that's where my academic career started going downhill. But I like show and tell, especially if it's something that I think people are interested in. And through this lifestyle, I've met a lot of people, and I've become friends with a lot of them. And I run into them, and they say, "Hey, yeah, that was really cool what you said about..." And I'm like, "You watch my videos?" "Oh, okay." Well, when I plug that in, like I'm making a video that people are going to see, because I make a video and that's it. I hit the upload button and then I press on with my day. My job is to produce. I produce milk, I produce beef, I produce pork, chicken, compost, hay. And if I don't produce, my family doesn't eat, right? We farm for a living. And I see a lot of other people that are saying, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And I'm all about that because that's our roots. That's where it's really at. And when I come in contact with people who also produce, those are the people that I find interesting. And I value what they say. I also come in contact with people who produce nothing. They may make a fat paycheck on something, but at the end of the day, they're not really producing anything. Content creators do produce stuff, and some of it is very good content. But I think you can get into the place where, okay, I got to produce something today, so what's it going to be? No, that's that's like Hollywood, you know. Let's get a scenario going that people will get enthralled in. And Hollywood at this point has really catered to the non-production type people. And they did really well with it for a long time. I guess they're not doing so good anymore because producers, people who have to produce, you know, they're in construction or they're in farming. You know what I'm saying? You produce something at the end of the day. They're not really that interested in what they have to say there anymore. So it's not as doing as well as it was, but production is doing really well. And I kind of feel like now is the time to put the pedal to the metal. What I mean by that is if you're operating a piece of equipment and it has an engine and you want it to run as fast as possible, you put the gas pedal, right down to the floor. Now is the time to put the pedal to the metal. There was a couple comments of the video that I made yesterday, and from those comments I realized I don't think people know what I'm talking about. And this morning, I've been up since pretty early trying to contemplate, okay, how do you communicate this to people? And I think this is it, in a nutshell. You got to consider the word trajectory. So if you have one laying chicken and you produce one egg a day, and then you say, wow, this is really good, I think I'm going to get another chicken. And you get another one. Now you're producing two eggs a day. So that is your trajectory. If you add one chicken per week, you know, your production is on the incline, right? You're producing more. And that's really what you want to look at. So to get into farming and make it make sense, it really isn't about I don't want to throw stones at people that do selfies and stuff. That's cool. You're showing off what you do. That's what I'm doing, right? But it's not about that. It is about production. You research buying a cow, you buy a cow, you milk the cow, you make things for your family appreciates that. That's it right there. You get a white bucket and you fill it with soil and you plant a tomato seed in there, and then you put a stake in there and the tomato plant follows that and you get a half a bushel of tomatoes off of that. That's it right there. You're producing. It isn't about how many people click on your video or say, oh, that's cool. It really isn't about that. There is times when you can get wooed in that direction because, boy, you make a viral video and YouTube will give you some money. I don't know how much they'll give you. I don't really track that, but some people, you know, are getting billions of views or hundreds of thousands of views, and that's how they make their living, right, on views. But I don't think that that's going to work for everybody. I mean, somebody's got to produce, and that those products that are produced, the beef, pork, chicken, milk, whatever it is that you produce. I'm not a produce guy, but you know, produce people produce vegetables, and then those vegetables are converted into dollars, and then those dollars are used to buy your fuel and the things that you need in the course of the day. We're livestock people, so our thing is livestock more. I do produce, but it's for my family. It's not to say that that's discounted because, you know, we eat vegetables and my livestock eats vegetables. You know, I showed you yesterday we have trees here that are producing a lot of fruit, and that will nourish my family this fall. We're not going to sell that out. We just don't. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I'm not at the point yet where I have enough time or enough expertise in produce to do that. But my point here I know I get back to my point. My point is an attitude. It is an attitude of increased trajectory day by day by day. And there's so many things that you have to take into account on that. But that's the overall goal, is to increase day by day by day. Now, someday a day will come when I, might retire. I don't know, at maybe 110 or something like that. And then at that point, well, I'll just mow the lawn at that point, or, pick peaches off the tree and eat them right there. But the production facility will be passed off to someone else that will continue it and continue production. When you start down that road of production, it's sort of like I've never been a frog, but say when I was a kid, we used to play a lot in the swamp, and we would jump from these pads, and it was where a tree had grown, and then the tree had broken off, and then there was just this pad there in the swamp, and you'd have to jump from one to the next, and you could slip on it, and you could fall in the swamp, which that happened. That happened to me a lot of times. I was not that spry of a kid compared to some of my chums. But when you jump to one, you'd say, okay, where's the next one? And your perspective changes because you're on the one you've just jumped to, and then you say, oh, well, that one's closer. But if you get smart, then you look, okay, if I'm on that one, where can I go from there? And it's kind of like that in farming, because when you get good at doing one thing, then you say, oh, this is sort of like this. I think I want to try that too. And your expertise level comes up, means you get better at it, you get good at it. Maybe you find out that, hey, some simple equipment or processes will make this easier and more streamlined, maybe safer, if you want to talk about food safety. I mean, we're there all the time. We send out, 20 times 7, we're sending out a lot of milk. I mean, I can't do math, but we're sending out a lot of milk, and it's got to be cooled down correctly or it doesn't last in people's fridges. So recently we said, hey, a good way to do this would be low battery. Okay. And so we have an ice machine that's coming this Tuesday, and that's going to streamline the process, because in the summertime, our refrigerators and stuff are really working hard and they're not cooling down the milk fast enough. Ice will, and an ice machine is made to do that. So I'm going to get an ice machine. Yeah, dropped a few bucks on it, but I think it'll pay off, because you want your milk to be, have as much longevity in somebody's fridge as possible. You want them to get to the bottom of their milk and say, oh, this is still good. It's still really good. So things like that, expertise, tools, know-how, all those things come into perspective, but it starts with the attitude of production. We're producing something. If you notice, people who are not producers a lot of times wind up in agencies where they regulate. And it's pretty obvious when you interface with them, you don't really know how this works, do you? Well, no, but I got this little certificate from this college here that says that I should, and therefore I have this position and you don't, and you must listen to me. Well, that's a thing of the past. Things are changing. You never get anywhere with those people, because they never give you any information that helps you move in the direction of success in your homestead. My goal, I'd like to see the production levels of 1935 brought back to the United States, where you had family farms that were producing very well. Farms like this that were built in roughly 1900 these were the people that produced wealth. The people that lived in town because they worked at the stockyard, or they worked at the railhead, or the slaughterhouse, or the creamery, or whatever. But the people that lived in the perimeter actually had cars, and they were able to get to town. And when they got to town, they were called sir. Things have been flipped on their head now, where farming is low expectation, and somebody really worked that hard. Low expectation in personnel, low expectation in your ability to create wealth. Somebody worked real hard at that, but it's not true. It's not true. Like when you hear, well, there ain't no money in farming. No, there ain't no money in farming if you work for a farm and you get $10 an hour. No, there ain't no money in farming, but that's an hourly wage that you don't have to take if you don't want to. You know, you can farm. And one of the things I say at the end of every video is anyone can farm. Because this notion that we've just got to limit farming to a small group of people, that's not good. That's dangerous. That's limiting people's ability to create wealth, people's ability to have the food that they want to have, and so on. I think people, when I start down that road, I think you know what I'm talking about. And the farming techniques are not good. They're not good. They pollute. They make substandard food, and but that works for other entities that do well when people are sick, right? So we know where we're going here. So what do we do? I think that there's this outrage that is promoted. Outrage. And so you get outraged. Then what? Nothing. You're just outraged. Well, that's an emotion that's not good. How about putting all that energy into production? If I had to eat macaroni and cheese for dinner last night, and then I got diarrhea today, I could be outraged over that. Then what? Well, how about getting into this and producing good food and not have diarrhea the next day? Actually be stronger the next day than you were the day before, because you've eaten good food, like raw milk. You got to wonder with raw milk, people are connecting the dots, but for people that will hear this video for the first time, why is it that the regulatory agencies hate raw milk? They even promote lies about raw milk. Raw milk's illegal. Do the state police show up here when they see some cows out in front of the house? Hey, that guy could be producing raw milk. No, they don't, because it's not illegal. Raw milk is not illegal. It's just against their rules. But they conflate the word illegal with our rules. Well, I don't play by your rules. I'm not in your game. I'm not in your purview. You don't have any authority with me. So you might as well just shut up, because I'm going to do this. If you got a problem with it, well, why don't you call the state police and see what they have to say about that, right? Because state police are LEOs, law enforcement officers. So if I'm breaking a law, I'm pretty sure they'd be here, but they're not. So why do they go to such extents to throw stones at raw milk? But if you watch TV, which I haven't in a long time, but whenever I have to stay at a hotel once in a while, you see a commercial, and I suppose you'd see pretty girls on the beach and all this stuff, and then grab a Mountain Dew, slug that baby down. I don't know. I don't think that's a good, but you won't see grab a nice glass of raw milk and slug that down. It does a body good. You don't see that, because things are kind of upside down. They're kind of upside down. This is nothing new. We've always had people who were producers and then non-producers. It gets a little extreme when you call them parasites, but that's kind of what they are. And they find themselves, sadly, a lot of them find themselves in government and government agencies, and they wield a lot of influence, unfortunately. If I could change things with the stroke of a magic wand, I wouldn't want to defund them and put them out of business. That needs to happen organically. And that would happen when people start to realize that they're irrelevant to what I'm doing. You know, they're just irrelevant. They don't have any authority, and, you know, we just pay no attention. We just press on. Something that Trump said one time that I thought was smart, and I might lose people here. That's tough. People say things that are smart, but he was asked if he was going to really get into payback mode against the people that persecuted him and his family and stuff after his first presidency. And he says, no, we will just let our success be our retribution. And I think that is better, because you don't spend a lot of your energy and resources on retribution. You spend that on production, and with production comes success. All right, let that be your retribution. Okay, don't want to go too long. I do hope that people will comment on this, and we can keep this conversation going, because I think this is the summer of production in small farms. And we'd like to see a lot more people get into small farms. A lot more people be kind of freed from the shackles of, you know, the big food machine that could cut you off at the knees or just give you what they think they're going to give you. You don't actually get to say what you want. So I hope that is what people will take from this, and let's keep this conversation going. If there's any questions, put them in the comments, you know, because I do read them. I'm going to read them. I don't always read them, but I will read these, because I think this is the place right here. This is the place. We're dividing people between the producers and the non-producers. The non-producers are fine with the macaroni and cheese and the Mountain Dew, and it's obvious when you look at them. So why would you take their counsel? Take the counsel of producers, successful producers, and go from there. All right? And don't get caught up in well, I don't want to tell you what to do. You can do what you want. But for me, getting caught up in the binary, like this is good, this is bad, I think that's a bad place to be, because you don't get anywhere, you know? You just don't get anywhere. Okay, that's what I get to say. This message is 100% certified. Remember, anyone can farm. Have a good day.